But you'll notice from the picture that I had when I was coming in, that's the way that I launch all my streams now, is like I have a picture of what I'm going to talk about next to that woman who was screaming when Trump got elected on her knees. No, no. We've been hearing that scream ever since. Is obviously I'm going to talk about H3H3. So I want to I'll just put some context here, a little bit of disclosure. I've talked to Ethan a few times. I think Ethan is a guy that's kind of gone through quite a bit, and I see a lot of very harsh criticism towards him. And I want to offer a kind of alternative perspective here, and that is that obviously they moved away from doing the humor videos that you guys probably know them for and used to follow them for, because it's not as lucrative as a podcast. I think I remember saying this to him on Twitter, that Twitch were out there actively campaigning to bring in big influencers to do podcasts on the platform, and he would definitely fit the bill with like 5 million YouTube followers or whatever. So that tweet's out there that I said, like, oh, you should totally do it. I'm not saying I'm responsible for it. I think he was going to do it anyway. But what I mean is, a lot of people have criticized the podcast and said it was like the start of the end of H3H3. But you have to understand that, there's a lot of money in podcasting right now, and that remains true. It's one of the easiest forms of media to monetize, and it's one of the it's one of the lowest cost to produce. You need like a, dime store fucking shower curtain around a wall, some crazy crap on the walls, a table, and 2 fucking Shure microphones through a mixer, and some guy to sit around and press buttons, and that's it, really. If you've got that, you can run a pretty successful podcast. So it's not a surprise to see H3H3 move towards that. Now, I know that H3H3, have had some pretty disastrous episodes of the podcast just in general in terms of, how they're going to be remembered, like most notably Bill Burr. But I've said this a lot. It's a recurring thing that I bring up on here. Sort of like Lily Singh's late night show. When mainstream entertainment and YouTubers collide, it's always a shit show. Mainstream entertainment doesn't really respect YouTube. They don't really respect YouTubers. They still think they're a cut above. And equally, YouTubers are so used to being able to pre-record everything and present everything as absolute perfection. They have a tendency not to live stream that much, that when they end up interacting, what you get is this disdain colliding with a lack of media polish, right? So, Bill Burr, when he went on the show, I don't think he really wanted to be there. I think it was probably something that his agent kind of put him up to. And, you could see the difference in tone of how he was handling the interview. Say when he goes on Joe Rogan and he just sits there and, he just talks about what he wants to talk about, and Joe just says, "That's crazy, pull that up, Jamie. Look at this ape chewing off someone's face on DMT, whatever." And it is just a Bill Burr show. He's in complete fucking, he's in complete control of what's going on. I'm not saying Ethan asked great questions or perhaps even researched how combative Bill Burr can be sometimes in interviews, because, Ethan Klein isn't the first person to fall afoul of that. But I'm just saying, from somebody that's worked in mainstream media, that there is a disdain towards YouTubers in general. And I think that was almost indicative of that, rather. So I get it, I wouldn't say the podcast is always straight fire, but then again, podcasts can't be, can they? Joe Rogan's podcasts are hit and miss. We all remember the embarrassing Steven Crowder episode where they ended up arguing over weed, and it was just super fucking awkward. It can happen to anybody that you have a bad episode. So I think when people were being really harsh and banging on Ethan for that, it isn't fair, and it does sort of eschew a lot of alternative facts, right? So anyway, the reality is, I think there's a lot of negative attention put on them because they've become successful at one thing, and then they've pivoted away from that, and they focused on money. Look, they're having, they got kids. There was lots to think about there, and I don't blame him for trying something different, even if it's had varying degrees of success. And I think it's just there's this culture in YouTube where, funnily enough, YouTubers like to bang on their own, especially the most successful among them. So anyway, and Ethan very kindly signal boosted my article about Etika and said it was a good article, and he tweeted it out there, and it was one of the most read articles on Deserto. Certainly my most read article, and I think it was an important one. So, I thank him for that. So I think in general he's a good guy. I've seen a lot of nonsensical stuff from screeching leftists that he is a gateway to the alt-right or whatever, and it's like, if a Jewish comedian is the gateway to the alt-right now, then the alt-right have really let their standards slip. There's a lot of negative attention put towards him because he is now in that realm of live entertainment where you are expected to have opinions and give hot takes, and we all know we crave opinions until it's an opinion we don't like, and then we want to destroy the person that stated the opinion. That's how we operate now. That is literally the environment we have fostered for ourselves. Oh, tell us what you think about this. Tell us what you think about this. You're being strangely quiet about that. Oh, well, I think this. God, that's horrible. You should be cancelled. So the hot take, as it's called, hot takes don't exist. It's another one of these stupid words like dog whistles and gaslighting, the most overused faux intellectual words that don't actually make any sense when you think about it. If you say you're gaslighting me, you're not being gaslit because you're aware that somebody is trying to alter your perception of reality. The whole point is that you're uncertain of it. That's what the play was about. Dog whistle, if you can hear it, you must be the dog. So if it's a whistle that only Nazis can hear, but you figured it out, bad news, my friend, you're a Nazi too. So that's really fucking stupid. And hot takes are just quick opinions about particular topics that you might not have researched. So a hot take is exactly what social media is designed for. And the phrase hot take, there is a tacit admission that it is being produced quickly, and therefore you should temper your expectations about how well informed it actually is. Does anybody do that? No. Why? Because we're fucking morons. We have become a culture of idiots. We worship stupidity and outrage on a daily basis, and we don't actually think about what we're saying or cognitively interface with the things that we're talking about. That's just what we are now. That is what humans have become. We've dumbed ourselves down. We are now a garbage version of what could have been a very high functioning machine. We fucked up. But anyway, don't worry about that. That's not what we're going to talk about. A little bit heavy, wasn't it? Yeah, a bit of philosophy there. It's fine. Don't worry, guys. What we're going to talk about instead is, I get up and I'm like, doing my work, and then I'm looking over at Twitter, and the number 2 trending topic worldwide is H3H3. Let me get the right hashtag. H3H3 is over party. This is another stupid thing, by the way, that people do on Twitter, Twitter addicts. What they do is they whenever somebody basically has like a slew of negative tweets about them, they say they're over. What does that mean? They're not over. They're not being kicked off Twitch. They're not being banned off their platforms. Advertisers aren't pulling out. They're going to keep producing their content. In no way are they over. Is it a party? No, it's a bunch of mentally ill K-pop fans tweeting from their basements. So it's not really a party as I understand it either. I've been to parties. If I turned up to a party and it was a bunch of fucking K-pop incels, shoulda stand Luna, and you're just typing on your keyboard shoulda stand Luna and posting the same clip of some girls dancing that you do all the time, that's the worst party I've ever been to. I think I'd fucking hope the punch was spiked. Like, I'm going to get beamed up to the fucking mothership. You know what I mean? But whatever. It's a stupid hashtag. But I wanted to see what had happened, right? Because I'm thinking, there's there's popular targets to go after in the YouTube community. And, for example, and it's sad because I recently saw a DM where Keemstar said Richard Lewis is the R word or whatever to one of his ex-staff members. And I thought, I did a lot of good work for Keem. You've seen that on the stream. Whenever he didn't understand a topic, I would record a little video, explain it to him, and send it to him, or I would be in his DMs and tell him stuff that was going on news wise. And when people tried to ban him, saying he had no place, drama channels are toxic and he had no place on YouTube, that's absolutely outrageous. That is an assault on freedom of expression, freedom of speech that Keemstar doesn't deserve. What I did do was say he was grotesquely irresponsible to put somebody that had just been released from a mental health facility, into an interview situation under an incredibly stressful situation for himself. And that is not responsible or ethical journalism. And obviously when Etika did commit suicide tragically, I don't know if Keemstar got so angry at people criticizing him for it because it was it's a recognition he does feel bad about it, but he could never admit it because Keemstar is this kind of almost like a persona at this point. I'm not saying it's drastically different from who he is as a person, but I want to believe that the reason he got so upset and saying I did nothing wrong was because deep down he knows that he did. But he pretty much blocked me on Twitter and has never communicated with me again and thinks I'm an asshole, despite the 99 times I defended the guy because I criticized him for what he did over Etika. But anyway, the reality is this: there is a culture where certain targets are fair game, if you like. Keemstar's one of them. We all remember when they tried to get him literally banned off YouTube. The idea of a YouTuber putting pressure on YouTube to ban a YouTuber despite them not violating the rules because of some ephemeral and nebulous concept like toxicity is mind-blowing to me, but that's what was happening. And Ethan is another very popular target, so I assumed he'd made a video and it had bombed or something like that, and all the YouTubers had slithered out from under their rocks. YouTube is just as a concept, by the way. Have you ever noticed how every new development in YouTube, by the way, YouTube is garbage. It's objectively garbage. If you are watching this stream and you're thinking, man, I'd love to be a content creator, do not even bother setting up a YouTube account unless you are just going to use it as a receptacle to house your VODs, because there is no money in it. There is now no discovery or exposure, and with new things like the copper legislation that's coming in and everything else, you will just never be the only people that can now make it on YouTube are media affiliates already that come to YouTube with a big marketing team and connections to help blow them up. For example, and you have to make family-friendly content, of course, nothing contentious or political. For example, Binging with Babish is a good example. A lot of people, see the huge meteoric rise without remembering the big push he got because he was like an ex-media dude. He came from advertising and marketing and then wanted to start his own cookery show where he was the personality. And boom, Binging with Babish is one of the biggest cooking channels on YouTube right now. That's great for him. With his money and his connections, and the content's good too, and it's exactly what YouTube want to promote. But if you wanted to do like an insightful political break, you're never getting promoted, you're never getting pushed, you're never getting monetized. There is no point in starting a YouTube channel today. You may as well be a live streamer or something else. There's just no point. So anyway, all of this irrelevant. I'm just sick and tired of YouTubers constantly pushing, oh, it's the apocalypse, it's all over, YouTube's over. Fuck off then. Do you know what I mean? You don't see me specifically making YouTube videos anymore. You see me using it as a receptacle for my live content. Copper comes out, they misrepresent that, they pretend it's a new thing. It's been around since, 1998? There's certainly some concerns, but and YouTube have made some changes because of the settlement they paid to the FTC, but it's not as bad as people think. It's definitely there are a lot of protections in place. If you have an animated component, you're not instantly deemed for children. You're not going to get fined by the FTC for it. Like, for example, on the NetDicks channel, which we still do nothing with, or even in my main YouTube channel, we have animations. It's not for kids. Animations do not have to be for kids. I can prove my audience isn't children. I can prove my content's not for children. That's all there is to it. It's really not that big a deal. But all the YouTubers come out with their bilge about how it's all over, and you know, it's the Adpocalypse 5. Are we on now? I don't even know. And they never fuck off. They never stop, do they? Do you know why? Because the YouTubers that are crying about this to their millions of followers about how they're going to have to shut down their million-strong, you know, YouTube channels are just full of shit. They're making money still. It's the mid-tier, it's the mid-tier and the new and up-and-coming YouTubers that get fucked because of this stuff. Ain't the ones that are fucking, you know, crying about it so much. Anyway, whatever, that's an aside. It's got fuck all to do with anything that we're talking about. So I go into the hashtag, and it turns out that Ethan Klein has said something negative about K-pop. Right. Now, I've made my views on it quite clear. I'm on record. I think if you run a K-pop Twitter account, that should be in the DSM-5, the handbook for, you know, assigning, you know, proof of mental illness, because I've never seen one of those accounts function on any level I would consider healthy. So it should just be, you know, DSM-5, you know, like put all the other stuff in there you want to put in, like, you know, gaming addiction made it in, running a fucking K-pop Twitter account doesn't, but gaming addiction with all of the fucking weird woolly scientific bullshit that doesn't prove it at all, that makes it in. But K-pop Twitter accounts don't. Okay, fine. That makes total sense to me. But anyway, K-pop has to be fair game. If you have a Twitter account, you will have had a negative interaction or seen a negative tweet from a K-pop account. It's just what you have to put up with in the landscape now. It's like using Omegle and you'll see a penis. You know, that's just how it works. I'm sorry. You go on one of those platforms, you're going to see a knob. If you go on Twitter, you're going to see some deranged K-pop fan inappropriately tweeting, some people dancing when someone's just died. It's just, Twitter do not want to clean up their platform in any meaningful way. They'd much rather ban somebody for saying, here's a statistical fact that makes people uncomfortable in polite conversation. Banned. I think the science around non-binary is a bit nebulous. Banned. Whatever it is, get out. You're not allowed here. K-pop fan tweeting somebody dancing in the most horrific circumstances, sometimes directly at family members. That's fine. We aren't going to clean that up. K-pop Twitter accounts, by the way, absolutely should be banned off the platform. The end. They serve no goal that I can tell except to be disruptive. So okay, not all of them. I'm sure, like, obviously official or unofficial fan accounts, but I'm talking, you know, the ones I'm talking about. The ones that literally just insert K-pop into anything or everything. Just get them off the platform. They do not do anything positive at all. So the idea that you can't criticize K-pop without this like insane backlash just sort of proves the point. But I wanted to see what he said, because I thought, oh, you know, Ethan does, like I say, he's a guy who, like, hot take first, thoughts for the consequences second. So I thought maybe he did say something egregious and crazy, right? So let's have a listen.
BTS. I don't get the BTS thing. I'm just gonna say it right now. I don't like K-pop. I hate K-pop. I don't get BTS.
K-pop?
They look like they're just a bunch of... How did this become a thing in Western culture where all these grown men and little girls are jerking off to little K-pop boys? It's like a little fetish. It's like a little twink gay fetish about these K-pop boys.
Does Ian have an insight on K-pop?
So, listen... that is, believe it or not, guys, that is the offending clip. And you're going to see people do these mental gymnastics like they should be at the fucking Olympics or Cirque du Soleil. The mental gymnastics are that fucking crazy. That is the clip, guys. That is the clip. And I'm going to go on record here at great risk, it seems, to my career. He's absolutely right. Like, what is the problem? I am confused as to why K-pop is so popular in Western culture. It doesn't seem to translate at all on any level. Not to mention, as I'll demonstrate, K-pop is notorious for being one of the most exploitative areas in world music, where these artists are literally signed to accounts that have been contracts rather that have been described as indentured servitude by legal minds. And, if you're a stan of that, then you... I don't know what to say. Like, how can you profess love for somebody knowing that you're part of the machinery that makes their lives potentially objectively miserable? Because rarely does that money, trickle down. Rarely are these people in good places. And it's interesting, isn't it, that we had... who was it now? There was a woman artist who was it Taylor Swift. Taylor Swift was publicly complaining about saying, "Hey, I can't perform my songs anymore because I sold the rights and they will not let me perform them unless I agree to certain things." And she essentially doxed these guys on Twitter. And everybody was fine with this. She should have been banned. What she did was worse than what Milo did, for example. And everyone went crazy and said, yeah, that contract's really bad. She was paid a lot of money to sell the rights to those songs. Her father is, I believe, a lawyer, looked over that, helped her, okayed the deal. And there was no consequences for that. Everybody sided with Taylor Swift on that issue, which is fine, by the way. I think there is a degree where even if you sell the rights, I would expect there would be some sort of argument that you should still be able to perform something that you created in a live setting, but whatever. But the reality is these K-pop stans are like, the K-pop artists are in contracts that are embarrassing. Like they're horrific. And there's numerous stories about this, and they are propping it up. So it's like, okay, that's bad. Then you've got this thing where, you can see here, I'll just read you what the criticisms are of Ethan, is that what he said was xenophobic because he used the term Western culture, which apparently is some sort of dog whistle to right-wing, alt-right types. No, that is so disingenuous to get to that point. Yeah, this is absolutely true, guys. I'll demonstrate it for you in a second. And that is that the reason he said Western culture is because it is a uniquely Eastern phenomenon. It's K-pop. It's from Korea. It doesn't have any of the cultural sensibilities. The music is different to what we're used to. The coordinated dance routines are a little bit anachronistic. You'd have to go back to like 80s boy band fever, I think, to find anything analogous in Western culture to it. That's all there is to it, really. It's just, it's just, there is this thing. When we talk about Western culture, we're not talking about like white culture or some sort of exclusionary aspect to our societal and cultural norms. What we're just saying is, I think we can all agree, the West TM is very different to other parts of the world. For example, if I was to say China engages in practices that are an anathema to Western culture, is that a racist dog whistle, or am what I saying China values state oppression in the name of patriotism over freedom of expression, which is a much more highly championed value in Western countries? That's all there is to it. No racism involved, just an observation that there are cultural differences across the world. So I have no idea why anybody would want to kind of go after Ethan on that basis. I do find it incredibly distasteful when people try and assign alt-right Nazi values to Jewish people, the one ethnic and religious group that suffered the most at the hands of the group you are now saying they are secretly in league with. It just smacks of a real disdain, a casual disdain for historical fact. And I think it's grotesquely offensive when Jewish people have to sort of fend off that kind of allegation, knowing that, given Ethan's age, he's probably 2 generations removed from somebody that was killed in the Holocaust. It is incredible to me, and they do it. Your politics are irrelevant. Ethan is a Jewish guy who lives in New York. I would wager almost entirely liberal in his outlook, apart from 1 or 2 edgy jokes he might have made on the internet. And then they do it to Ben Shapiro, somebody who is obviously staunchly conservative and admits it. It just seems crazy to me. It just seems crazy to me. So anyway, they accused him of xenophobia. They accused him of racism. They accused him of homophobia because he said it is a little gay twink fetish. Now, again, speaking from a bisexual perspective, we kind of get to see both sides of the fence. The idea that there is anything homophobic about acknowledging the existence of twink fetishes seems to me to be very puritanical and borderline sexually repressed, because obviously there are archetypes of men in the gay community that people prefer, and the most kind of broad, if you wanted to talk about a spectrum, the broad, at one end you have bears and daddies, right? Very big, hairy men. Sometimes muscular, sometimes just overweight. Overweight's more of a daddy trait, and bearded. And at the other end of that, you typically have the younger, more svelte, hairless guys that we call twinks. And that's, I don't know what to say. The K-pop, the idealized K-pop male artist is definitely more in line with what we would call the twink aesthetic. Twinks it's an exclusively gay term. It's part of gay culture. It is not offensive or bigoted in any way to acknowledge that. I'd say quite the contrary. I'd say being aware of the existence of such things and talking about it in an open and completely non-disparaging way couldn't be called homophobic in any way, shape, or form. And I would fully resent anybody characterizing my explanation of that now in that manner. It absolutely isn't homophobic at all. It's ridiculous to imply that it is, but that's what they jumped on him for. So Western culture is a racist dog whistle. Saying that people masturbating to K-pop artists are having a gay twink fetish is homophobic, supposedly. This is where we're really starting to lose a sort of grip on what prejudice and bigotry actually is and what it sounds like, because there is nothing linguistically there to even make that assumption, but we make the assumption anyway because we're outraged about the other thing. And the other thing is really inoffensive, and it's pathetic if you would get upset about it, is that he doesn't like K-pop and you do. So what you must do is, because you know that is an unreasonable grounds to cancel someone, you know it's completely unreasonable. You then ascribe these ridiculous fantasies of bigotry and prejudice to justify your childish outrage. That is what has occurred here. That is inarguable. Just to show you the worst example, and there is a use of a racist word here, so I'll apologize in advance for that. I'm not going to repeat it, but let me just bring it up for you. This is the worst example that was on Twitter, where a reply to Ethan from this Jay Hakim with the Chicago Tribune, Variety, and Rolling Stone, so another verified journalist, going absolutely crazy for no good reason because they're trying to harvest outrage clicks, literally said, why don't you just call them the C word and get it over with, Ethan? Here's why you can't imagine little girls and grown men jerking off to little K-pop boys, because you view Asian men as inferior to fine white specimens such as yourself. So that to me is beyond outrageous. To even ascribe the language of eugenics, which, as you saw from what he said in the clip, I played you the clip, absolutely isn't there. But again, to have the lack of taste to ascribe the language of eugenics to Jewish people, it is so staggeringly tone deaf. I absolutely cannot believe that this would fly without some form of sanction. Quite the contrary. There will be no action for this whatsoever as we get locked into this insane, oppression hierarchy that everyone's trying to vie over one another, because we can no longer talk to each other sensibly. We can no longer explore opinions. We can no longer engage with people that we suspect may fundamentally disagree with us. These are all social skills that we're losing. And certainly social media amplifies that stupidity to previously unseen levels, to where a verified journalist on Twitter will accuse a Jewish man of basically being a eugenicist. It is unbelievable. Unbelievable. And yes, it's not lost on me as well that I don't think she really understands the nature of white within the sense of when you're applying it to an Ashkenazi Jew, because certainly you would that is an ethnic denomination, and it is different from white. Anyway, let me just also show you, if you thought what Ethan said was bad, I would like to draw your attention to an article that's more in line with my opinions on the matter, and I didn't see any outrage about this, and it's definitely something I think you should all read, because it's a very interesting perspective. This is K-pop. This is in the South China Morning Post, a paper of record. K-pop is an infectious disease, not a cultural export to be proud of. And this is by Yondon Latu, who talks about the tragic suicide of Yonghyun, who was one of these K-pop stars. And he said that the Korean wave of cultural entertainment is an affliction that the world would be better off without. And what he talks about in this article, it's a great read, is pretty much what I've alluded to, that the machinery that creates K-pop stars is defective, it is grotesque, it is exploitative. But then on top of that, this stan culture that comes along with it creates this unreasonable pressure. And should any of these people fall from grace or make music that these stans don't like, not only do they have the reality of the exploitative contracts to live with every day, they have these baying crowds of predominantly Western lunatics creating a hostile, toxic environment for them on social media and driving global negative attention their way. It's a really interesting read, and as I said, it's just a short one, but it's somebody with a perspective from Korea who is saying we really shouldn't be exporting this at all. It's very bad. That, to me, K-pop is an infectious disease as a soundbite. Way worse, by the way, than anything Ethan said there. He just said, I don't understand it. It seems strange to me. That was it. No outrage about this piece from a couple of years ago, because I guess the K-pop cancer hadn't metastasized to Twitter at that point. But you can go Google that and check it out. Stan gets its name from the Eminem song, so it is it was originally used in an entirely negative way, because if you've heard the song Stan, you know this is like literally about a dude who fucking is so obsessed with an artist he ends up killing his pregnant girlfriend and himself because he can't handle the rejection. For some reason, the mentally ill clusters of fandoms took the word Stan, were very comfortable appropriating it, and think that's a good thing to describe themselves as a stan. Yep, we stan. No. You don't want to be a stan. You don't want to be a stalker fan. You really shouldn't be like that. That's not good. But that's what they do. So whatever. But anyway, so you can go and read that. But just to give you a sort of broader context, like why is it people don't like K-pop accounts on Twitter? Let me just show you some examples, and this is every time. This is what I'm talking about when I say I think there is something wrong, fundamentally wrong with these people. This was a response to a murder that had occurred here. And you can see here, this was Louis Tomlinson's younger sister, Felicity Thompson, has been found dead at the age of 18. And you can see, look, there's the replies. Maybe if Louis Tomlinson's sister had stanned Luna, maybe Louis Tomlinson told me to tell y'all stan Blackpink. Maybe if she stanned Luna. There's the one about the Christchurch shooting in New Zealand, would be alive if they stand NCT. This is typical reactions to any tragedy that you see. And again, I'll just show you another example. Remember, I'll do the journalist trick on you. I always tell you to be mindful of, where if I can find 3 examples, I call it a trend. But real talk, it is a trend. This isn't something that just occurs. This was a terrible story about a child that was raped by a sexual predator, and then later told that the predator had HIV and had passed it on to the child. This is a K-pop account replying to it. Well, maybe if she stanned Luna. That is typical. This is a typical interaction you will see from K-pop accounts. Let's have another look here. I picked out some other examples. There's this. What do we have? Oh yes, this I believe was where after Etika committed suicide, a K-pop account said unseen video of Etika moments before he went missing. This is so sad. Oh my god, please watch the whole thing. And of course it was a video of some K-pop people dancing, and then when there was backlash against this because of how tasteless it actually is, guys, I didn't make any of these tweets. I was hacked. Can you leave me alone now? Yes, because obviously someone would hack your account and start posting K-pop from it. The same thing that you do when your account isn't hacked, of course. That's absolutely correct. And then there's just general examples, I think, from the sort of Etika situation where they literally replied to people replying to the NYPD news report, confirming what we all suspected, that Etika had took his own life. And of course, maybe if he stanned Luna, maybe if he stanned Luna, and on it goes. And what I found is, a lot of these people, they always say these are fake accounts. They're not really K-pop fans, you see. What they're doing is they are creating fake K-pop accounts, posting about K-pop all day long, just so when there's a tragedy, they can post a K-pop video or a K-pop should have stand, insert, you know, whatever fucking band or artist here. And it's all part of a disinformation process to make K-pop fans look bad. Now listen, if that were true, why are these accounts so old, and why are they posting about K-pop on a daily basis anyway? It makes no sense to me. That is not what we call logical. You know. So the idea that K-pop fans don't do this. There was also what happened to Keemstar. There was this incident with Cancel Keemstar recently where he said that a BTS guy, I think it was, had been in a car accident. Completely true. People tried to fuck with the algorithm. So actually, lies appeared over. Let me see if I can find that for you. I didn't prepare that, but I'll just get it. They actually were fucking with the algorithm to try and basically make it look like to bury Keemstar's Keemstar's tweet, essentially. So I think, is this it? Yeah, here we go. This is a Daily Dot report about it. So you can just see for yourself how insane the average K-pop fan is. And nobody's denying that these are K-pop fans. So here it is. This was where BTS fans rally around Jungkook after car crash. And Keemstar was kind of like a Western journalist tweeting about it. But as you can see here, because he used the hashtag Jungkook car crash, he ended up finding examples of people trying to game the algorithm and posting other things. So what they were trying to do was bury that hashtag, bury that search to hide the fact that he'd been in a car accident. And it's just incredible to me the lengths that people that in this fandom will go to. And it's always coordinated. So it just seems to me that this is something that really culturally needs to be removed from social media. It is an additional nightmarish aspect to it, that if ever you say anything about K-pop that they don't like, they're going to mass report your accounts, try and get you removed. I think this happened to Ariana Grande recently as well. This stan culture that they have is so fucking dangerous to people's livelihoods and probably their safety as well, that we've got ourselves in this insane situation where you can't even say, you know what, I don't understand K-pop. So that's where we're at. I wouldn't worry if you're a fan of H3H3. They're not over. He's not a racist. He's not in the alt-right. It was just a hot take designed for the purposes of entertainment in a live podcast setting. These things happen.